Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Nutrition for COPD and Heart Disease education session. My name is Megan Weber, and I'm the Registered Dietitian and Certified Diabetes Educator at the North Lanark Community Health Center. So today we've got a bit of an agenda. So just wanting to let you know what we're going to cover today. So we're going to go over the links between nutrition and these two chronic illnesses. Healthy eating recommendations for each, as well as special considerations and challenges that you might be facing. Okay. So in terms of heart disease, up to 80% of heart disease and stroke could be prevented through a healthy diet and lifestyle. So huge percentage, obviously. After a heart attack or stroke, risk for repeat event increases. So we're wanting to prevent this in the first place, but there's things that we have control over. So our diet, exercise habits, smoking, alcohol intake, stress management, all of these things are what play into a healthy lifestyle, right? So that's what contributes to the 80% decrease. So that's what we'll go over today, okay? And then in terms of nutrition and COPD, COPD is often associated with breathlessness, fatigue, loss of appetite, early sensation of fullness, bloating, or constipation, increased calorie requirements for some, as well as exacerbations in what to do during those times with nutrition. So just nutrition is related to every single one of these pieces, and that's what we're going to go over today for each chronic illness, okay? In terms of healthy eating, so maintaining a healthy weight is important with COPD. Whether you're overweight or underweight, nutrition obviously plays a key role here. So maintaining a healthy weight, so a weight that you feel most comfortable at, that you feel good at, you feel mentally clear, you're sleeping well, you're feeling energized, just a weight that you feel best at. Is your healthy weight, right? Having too much weight or too little weight, we'll go over kind of the consequences of each of those, but obviously nutrition and your diet will play a big role in both. Improving energy levels, so obviously if you have proper nutrition, that can help you to feel a little bit more energized throughout the day, be able to be more active and help with those lifestyle pieces, right? Preventing other chronic illnesses with nutrition, absolutely. Improving cholesterol levels and reducing risk of repeat cardiovascular events. We're going to go over that in quite a bit of detail today, as well as reducing the risk of lung infections and hospitalization. So nutrition plays a role in every single one of these, and we'll get into the details, okay? Just in general, some basic recommendations would be to include lots of fruits and vegetables. So boring advice, but really important for the antioxidants, the vitamins, the minerals, the fiber, just so important. So first and foremost, if there's a little bit of wiggle room to make improvement there, that's a great place to start. Including protein with each meal is important, especially to maintain muscle mass, which we'll talk about. Choosing whole grains and healthy fats are also important. Choosing foods closest to how they were grown, I'll go over that in just a second. So the least processed, ideally. And eating mindfully and enjoying your food. So paying attention to your hunger levels, your fullness levels, eating with others, all of these things are tied to healthy eating too, right? It's not just what you eat, okay? Canada's Food Guide. So this is the front page of the newish Canada's Food Guide. I'm not sure if everyone has seen it. It is available online and everything is clickable. So there's a ton of additional information if you click on different sections of the plate or different headings. So I would recommend checking it out that way versus just the paper form. But in general, aiming to have lots of fruits and vegetables, at least half your plate at every meal. Is the recommendation. Eating protein food, so a quarter of the plate should be some sort of protein, whether that's like beans and legumes or tofu, fish, eggs, nuts and seeds, meat, but try not to just think about meat 3 times a day, right? And then whole grains making up the other quarter portion of the plate. So Think of the true kind of whole grains like barley, bulgur, buckwheat, quinoa, lots of the really unprocessed kinds. Otherwise, like the brown rice, whole grain pasta, whole grain breads, all of those are excellent options as well. Making water your drink of choice, and then keeping in mind that healthy eating is more than just the foods that you eat. It's how you're eating. It's cooking at home. It's enjoying foods with others. It's being mindful. So lots of different pieces. Okay. Nutrients of focus with COPD. So protein. Protein is ideally included a little bit at each meal and snack. It doesn't need to be huge portions. And keep in mind variety and plant-based sources as well. Protein can help to reduce the amount of lost muscle. So especially during an exacerbation or a flare, protein is really, really important to be including throughout the day to help prevent some of that muscle wasting and loss. Fiber as well, so getting enough, not just from whole grains, but from fruits and vegetables as well. Beans and legumes are fabulous sources. But again, during times when you're not feeling great, maybe you're not quite as active, maybe you're on medications that are contributing to constipation, but reduced physical activity, not enough fiber in the diet, and medications are a bit of a perfect storm for constipation, and it's a very common concern for people with COPD. So including lots of fiber is very important. And omega-3 fatty acids. So with COPD, there's increased inflammation in the body. So omega-3s can help to combat that a bit. So the best sources would be from fatty fish. So the kind of top 5 options would be herring, trout, mackerel, sardines, salmon. All of those are really, really fabulous sources of the omega-3 fats. Other fish are still a great source of protein, but they don't have that omega-3 benefit in addition to being a source of protein. So all fish is great, but those top 5 are pretty high sources of the omega-3s. Other sources would be like extra virgin olive oil, nuts and seeds, avocado. All of those are fabulous. So including those on a regular basis is great. Okay, so protein, fiber, and omega-3s. Choosing real foods. So when I say choose foods closest to how they were grown or close to the farm, I'm thinking of kind of this sort of scenario. So on the left, we've got steel cut oats. So essentially those are just oats that have been cut with a steel blade, and that's the only processing they have undergone. Next, there's a Quaker oatmeal, fruit and creamy variety of some sort. So it's a flavored oatmeal. They've been processed into flakes, flavored and made into like more of a cereal form. Oatmeal squares, again, made into more of a cereal form, more highly processed. And then oatmeal to go raspberry strudel. So you really can't see the raspberry strudels on the farm very often if you think about a farmer's field type of scenario. But you can kind of picture the steel cut oats, right? So something to just keep in mind at the grocery store is, okay, like how would this look in nature or on the farm, and how could I apply that to my grocery list, or is this a good choice type of thing? So just something to consider. As you go from least processed to more processed, you're gaining sugar, salt, fat, calories, chemicals, preservatives, that sort of thing. You're losing fiber, vitamins, and minerals almost always, right? So and vice versa. So the least processed stuff, you're maintaining the good stuff and limiting the not so great stuff that we don't need any more of. Okay. Achieving your best weight. So just like I kind of alluded to earlier with overweight and underweight. So you can go either way. With being overweight, it does put you at increased risk of heart disease and stroke. Increased risk for additional chronic illnesses as well, such as diabetes, and increased breathlessness, just because the extra weight around your midsection does put additional pressure on the diaphragm. However, it's really important to try and avoid diet mentality or crash diets, that sort of thing. Instead, trying to do more baby steps, right? So small, sustainable changes that you feel comfortable with that you can maintain over the rest of your life. So even if it's aiming for half your plate of fruits and vegetables throughout the day, that's incredible, right? That's a great place to start. Even if it's reducing the number of desserts from nightly to 2 to 3 times a week, incredible, right? So aiming to make little switches like that rather than an all or nothing crash diet is highly recommended. But on the other side of things, if you're underweight, you're a lot more prone to infection, illness, hospitalizations, and may also need a lot of additional calories. So with COPD, it can take between 15 to 20% more calories just to maintain breathing if you're really struggling. So that can be a lot of additional calories to get in, and that can be a real challenge. So just things to keep in mind, and again, just kind of introducing how diet plays a role in lots of different pieces of this puzzle, okay? Common nutrition concerns that I hear from people with COPD, so it's being too tired to cook or shop for groceries or make meals, feeling too tired or breathless at meals, worrying about weight loss, and wondering about steroids and how that impacts things. So we'll go over each of these next, okay? So what if you're too tired or struggle to shop or cook? So some ideas. So utilizing a grocery pickup service. There's lots of volunteer services now with COVID-19 that have kind of popped up. So please take advantage of these. They're pretty great services and good to use during this time. Okay. Stick to your list and bring someone with you. So sticking to your list is important for everyone, right? To not overspend and to help with looking through like coupons and sales and get the deals. It also is a good idea to organize your grocery list according to the grocery store layout, just so that you're saving time. You're not in the store any longer than you need to be, spending extra energy, adding additional risks. And taking someone with you, dividing up your list and cutting the time in half, maybe that might be something to consider as well, right? When your energy is good, if you are able, doing some batch cooking can be a really great strategy. So you're cooking from scratch at home, you have control over what's going into your food. And if you're able to kind of pre-portion things, then that's a benefit as well. So making big batches, portioning them, freezing them, then all you have to do is heat and eat at a time when you're not feeling so great. So if you can, take advantage of those times and consider nutrition and kind of some future meal ideas, right? You do have to have some freezer space for that suggestion though, just something to consider. Choose easy to prepare meals. So keep in mind that supper is sometimes not the best time. Sometimes energy levels are better earlier in the day. So supper doesn't need to be a meat, potato, vegetable meal, right? It could just be eggs and toast, throw some salsa on the sides, throw some tomato or avocado or something on the side to kind of balance things out. Maybe fruit or yogurt. It doesn't need to be a big meal. It could just be snack style, lunches, that sort of thing, right? So try not to get too overwhelmed with constant cooking, because it is overwhelming for everyone, but especially when you're struggling with breathing. Consider Meals on Wheels. There's also heart-to-home meals for seniors. I get really great reviews on the quality, the flavor. You can get it hot or frozen. People are quite happy with the portion sizes and like the value for money. So something to look into if you're interested. And also just take out as a treat. So every once in a while, absolutely. Okay. If you're too tired or struggle to eat, so resting before meal times can be very beneficial. Eating your main meal earlier is actually a good general nutrition strategy. So eating a large breakfast, medium lunch, and small supper is a great routine to be into, so that you're burning off kind of what you're eating throughout the day in a healthy way, and going to bed not feeling totally stuffed. And when we go to sleep, everything slows, right? So including our digestion, our metabolism. So it's actually a healthier routine to be into if you can do big breakfast, medium lunch, small supper. So something to consider. Using your prescribed oxygen, especially and at meal times, right? Eat slowly, take your time, and maintain good posture. Again, the pressure on the diaphragm. So sit up straight. Just take some of that pressure off as much as possible. Any little thing helps, right? What if I have no appetite? So smaller, more frequent meals are a strategy that a lot of people give a go. Choose your favorite foods often. So when you're not feeling well, use anything to try and increase your appetite. So save your favorite foods for when you're not feeling well, just to try and help kind of get your appetite going. Eat meals with others, so make it more of a social, enjoyable time versus just kind of sitting there and stressing about how much you're able to eat or not able to eat and should eat or whatever, right? And talk to your doctor if things are not getting better, okay? It could be a medication side effect or something. What if I need extra calories? So I like to encourage people to choose kind of more bang for your buck type foods. So things that are higher in calories, protein, fats to begin with. So things like nut butters, oils, sauces, dried fruit, whole fat dairy, all of those are fabulous. Or also just like topping off the foods that you're already eating, so that you're not feeling like you constantly need to be eating. If you're already having like potatoes at supper time, add a little bit of butter, add some sour cream, add additional things to it, right? So that you're not taking necessarily any more bites, but that it's just more calorie dense. So the more bang for your buck. Things to include like at snack time. So protein is, again, something to keep in mind as a key nutrient. Nuts and seeds, hard-boiled eggs, beans, lentils, soup can be added to soups and casseroles. They're fabulous. So trying to incorporate heart-healthy pieces rather than just, I'll slap a bunch of butter or a bunch of jam or gravy or something like that, right? So consider the nuts and the seeds, consider oils, consider dried fruit, nuts and seeds, the whole fat dairy, higher fat stuff. Okay. Optimizing snack time. So just choosing higher calorie snacks is a great strategy as well. Even like instead of just snacking on like dry cereal, for example, maybe you can make that into like a parfait of like high fat yogurt with some fruit. Maybe mix in some dried fruit or some trail mix with that to kind of make it an enjoyable little parfait. Something, just different ideas, right? And consider a supplement. So by a supplement, I mean like a meal replacement in this case. So if you're not able to eat a meal, then drinks like Boost, Ensure, Glucerna are an option. And there's online lots of different recipes for different ones that maybe taste a little bit better if you're not a fan, or you can kind of customize your own. So things to consider for sure. What if I take a corticosteroid? So if you do, it's important to be cautious with the amount of salt and sugar in your diet. So salt, because your body is retaining extra fluid already, and salt exacerbates that. And sugar, because prednisone and steroids make your body a lot more sensitive to sugar, but also it increases blood sugar. So if you're already struggling with your blood sugars, then you do need to be extra careful with the sugar in your diet from added sugars. Okay. steroids are also really, really hard on your bone health, and they actually kind of leach some calcium from your bones. So oftentimes if you're on prednisone like a couple times a year, they'll send you for a bone mineral density scan more often than typical, and that's why. So it's important to make sure that you're getting enough calcium and vitamin D in your diet. So you may have to consider a supplement of those things, but aiming for 3 to 4 servings of just milk and alternatives is a strategy to make sure that you're getting enough. Obviously, there's lots of other sources of calcium in the diet, but it can be hard for it to add up to the amount of calcium in dairy products. Not a ton of food sources of vitamin D outside of the dairy that's fortified with vitamin D. Not huge amounts in many other foods. Some, but just not huge amounts. So a vitamin D supplement is something to seriously consider, especially when on a steroid. The recommendation is actually anyone over the age of 50 take at least 400 international units of vitamin D. So if you're not already doing that, that's something to certainly put on your shopping list. Okay. So let's just dive a little bit deeper into the heart disease piece of this. So achieving optimal cholesterol levels, blood pressure, limiting alcohol, and quitting smoking, and regular physical activity are some of the pieces that I want to cover next, okay? So in terms of cholesterol, there's different types. There's the good and the bad. So the good cholesterol is the HDL, or the happy cholesterol that we like to keep high. So ways to improve that one are to quit smoking, maintain a healthy weight, keep active, and include more healthy fats. So the same omega-3 fats as mentioned earlier. So the fatty fish, nuts and seeds, extra virgin olive oil, all of those are fantastic, okay? The bad cholesterol, so that's the LDL cholesterol that often gets all of the attention. That's the lousy one that we like to keep low. It's more so associated with the processed foods, ultra processed foods, saturated and trans fats. So really trying to keep an eye on those when you're label reading. So anything that says hydrogenated, or looking at the saturated and trans fats content are ways to be a little bit more informed about that. Ways that can help improve the LDL cholesterol are to include more soluble fiber. So fiber in general is fantastic. Soluble fiber in particular helps by forming a bit of a gel in your intestinal tract, and it pulls excess LDL into that gel and you poop it out. So it's a way to naturally manage the LDL. And the way that the HDL actually helps in this picture is it acts kind of like a dump truck and goes around picking up excess LDL from the bloodstream, takes it to the liver to be destroyed. So keeping the HDL high with the good fats is important for reducing the LDL and displacing the bad fats, okay? So we can control it with keeping the good fats high and lots of fiber, okay? Triglycerides are kind of another picture of the cholesterol picture, or another piece of the cholesterol picture, sorry. And they're associated with more of the higher intakes of sugary drinks or foods like pastries and sweets, as well as alcohol. Triglycerides can also be elevated if you weren't fasting for the blood work. And also, even if you're just having larger portions of foods that turn to sugar, so carbohydrates. So nothing wrong with carb foods, but if you're having them in excess, that can affect your blood work. So just keep that in mind going forward, okay? The two top diets typically in the world, year after year after year after year, are the Mediterranean diet and the DASH diet. So these are two that are very, very heart healthy diets. And so the two guides are kind of here for you to see. So being physically active, enjoying meals with others is at the base of the Mediterranean diet, including fruits, vegetables, grains, mostly whole, I say all whole grains, olive oil, beans, legumes, nuts, seeds, herbs, and spices. That is the bulk of the diet. From there, so that's what you include at every meal. From there, fish and seafood can be consumed often. It doesn't give portion sizes here. It just kind of goes on a meal by meal basis. Poultry, eggs, cheese, and yogurt, moderate portions, daily to weekly in terms of frequency. Meat and sweets less often at the very top of the pyramid. On the outside, wine in moderation, and water as your drink of choice. So that's the Mediterranean diet. The DASH diet is very focused on whole grains, more fruits and vegetables, low-fat dairy, lean sources of protein, as well as meat alternatives. Okay, so they're both fabulous, and a lot of research behind them. So to look into a little bit further if you are concerned with heart disease or your cholesterol or your blood pressure. So we've kind of covered the cholesterol piece. Now blood pressure is the other heart health piece, right? So a diet high in sodium can increase blood pressure. So the more salt in your diet, the more water your body retains. And that's more work on your heart 24/7. So if you're able to cut back on the amount of sodium in your diet, that can make a huge difference on your blood pressure. So to do that, limiting ultra-processed and prepared foods, checking food labels, and what you're looking for is less than 10% per serving on a label, okay? Also, limiting added salt in cooking and at the table is something to consider. However, 80% is what you're gonna see on a label. So it's not what you're adding to your food at home, it's what's already in it. So you do need to be careful. Even things like bread, cereal, yogurt that you don't typically think of as being high in salt can often be quite high in salt. So it's important to check all labels for sodium content, okay? Stress also affects blood pressure for sure, right? So finding ways to manage stress that work for you are really important. So whether it's meditation, progressive muscle relaxation, a quiet walk, a bubble bath, reading a book, it's whatever you find de-stressing. So just making sure to take the time to do those things for yourself. Alcohol, so if you don't drink, don't start. In terms of low risk drinking guidelines, men maximum of no more than 3 a day or 15 a week, and women 2 a day or no more than 10 a week. So those are the maximums, okay? Smoking as well also increases your risk for lots of chronic illnesses, right? So including COPD, high blood pressure, heart disease, and cancer. So not ideal. So if you are trying to quit, the community health center has a ton of services and different products, from the inhalers to lozenges to gums to mouth sprays to the patch. Lots of different ways to help you manage the cravings, the breakthrough cravings, as well as just the constant thoughts about smoking. So we're here to help, okay? Physical activity too, right? So cholesterol, blood pressure, the smoking, all of these pieces, the alcohol, all of these pieces are really important, but your heart is also a muscle, so we do need to keep it in good shape, right? So the recommendation is a minimum of 150 minutes per week of moderate to vigorous activity, okay? It doesn't mean that you need to be right at that right away, but that is the recommendation to eventually get to that and work up from there, okay? It doesn't mean that you need to be doing anything super strenuous. Walking is a fabulous, cheap, easy exercise to do for most, okay? The hardest part is often, I say, just getting your shoes on and getting out the door. So once you get into that routine, it gets easier, okay? Increasing activity in your daily living, right? So even if you're just parking further away from the store and getting in some extra steps, avoid sitting for long periods of time. And if you are sitting, just kind of break that up a little bit. So stand up and walk around a little bit, or do some little light stretches to break up the long period of time that you might be sitting for work or whatever, okay? And make sure that it's something that you enjoy, because that's what's going to keep you motivated with it and keep you doing it, right? You're probably not going to continue to do something that doesn't make you feel good or that you're not enjoying, right? So something that you can see yourself continuing with for years and years, ideally. In terms of supplements, so the vitamin D we touched on, so that's something to consider going forward. Omega-3s, if you don't eat many sources of the fish, nuts and seeds, extra virgin olive oil, avocado, those sorts of things. If you're not a fan of those sorts of things, then 1,000 milligrams of omega-3 is something to consider once a day. And a meal replacement supplement is something like an Ensure Glucerna Boost to consider if your appetite is very poor, you're skipping meals, that sort of thing. And like I said, if you're not a fan of these types of products, there are recipes to make your own at home. All right, so that's it for today. And thank you for listening.